Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan Laguna, and today I'm going to be presenting my flashcard prototype app for for the user persona. I chose to use one of the initial subjects that I interviewed, but dramatized some of the personality and personas a little bit to kind of make my point. The persona I used was Christy, age 27, with a bachelor's in psychology, Hispanic, and currently a marketing specialist in San Jose, California. Christy wants to go back to school to get her master's degree to increase her earning power and also broaden her mind and skill sets. So the basis of the app, the problem comes down to Christy would like to go back to school to get her master's degree. However, she hasn't attended school in over 5 years since she graduated. Um, a lot of students typically, when they graduate, will graduate around 22 to 23 years old, and end up pursuing their master's degree or going back to school at a much later point, or at a much later time. Case in point, my uncle, he graduated when he was like 23, 24 years old, got his BA, and then ended up going back to school when he was, around 45, and got his master's. So he hadn't attended class in quite some time, and it can be a pretty daunting process at that point when you try to get back into it. Um, but yeah, along with Christy, many other individuals want to go back to school or attend college for the first time, maybe in their later years. This can be really challenging as education can change a lot in the span of 10 years. If you go to high school when you're 18 and then try to go back when you're 30, it can be a really challenging concept. And education changes a lot. I told some peers and individuals that I work with who are maybe a little bit older about things that I used when I was in college, like such as Chegg, Quizlet, and some apps, and none of that stuff was around. The internet was like barely around when some of them were in college, so they were all pretty surprised when I talked about some of those things. But yeah, the persona I designed my app for is those who go back to school or go to college for the first time after the age of 25. So much later at their point where they take a break or don't go to college, immediately after school for whatever reason. But yeah, let's get into it. Um, so these are some of the earlier prototypes, wireframes that I made. When I first was starting off in the app, as you can see, they're pretty, you know, not the greatest, right? Went through. I think I took a little bit more time than I wanted to, and probably could have done them a little bit neater. But this was just kind of a mock draft that I did when I first started out. There are two different user flows. One is to actually create, an additional set to learn from, and then the other one is to um, do a learning session using that set that you just created as well. So two pretty basic tasks that you'd want to be able to utilize when you first open up the app, and for users of the app to be able to use. A big part of what I wanted to get out of my application was for it to be as simple as possible. Older people or people who aren't as familiar with technology would be able to pick it up, pretty easily. As you can see, there's definitely maybe some ways I could have cut down that we'll kind of get into later on, and made it a little bit more simplified. But this was kind of the mock draft prototype when I first started out and was beginning. Here are some more earlier wireframes slash prototypes that I created. Showing some of the screens that I developed, the splash screen, onboarding, along with the initial, sign in, login screen, the initial home screen. All of it could definitely use some work. Um, and that was kind of the process that I used when I got into user and usability testing and how it worked, and received a lot of feedback and some of the ways I can improve. But these were the initial wireframes that I kind of mock drafted and put together using the Marvel app. So the usability test plan was pretty simple. The direct tasks were create an account, create a new deck, create a flashcard on an existing deck, and then use the learn function to study. I felt that all of these functions or tasks were necessary to be able to use the app to its full potential, or not to its full potential, but to most of its potential. It would be really important for a user who maybe has never used a flashcard app or anything such as this, at all, and maybe they use like traditional flashcards in the past, which some of the user personas that I interviewed definitely just use standard flashcards to learn. new terminologies or definitions. The scenario task, the way I put them, was you were interviewing for a company that is in an industry that you have no familiarity with. You need to study new terminologies prior. You open the app and realize you need to create an account. You need to create a deck of bioscience terminologies to be prepared for your interview. You have created the deck and realize there is one additional term you need to add to that deck, and then time to study those terms. You use the learn feature at that point. So I try to make it a very fluid set of tasks, starting off with kind of the order that they've come in. So you have to create an account. You have to create a new deck because you wouldn't have a deck existing because you're just opening the app for the first time. Then you have to create a flashcard on an existing deck. So you make the deck and then realize that you don't have all of the flashcards that you need. So you add an extra piece of terminology on there, and then you use the learn function to finally execute and study the flashcards that you just created. So, needless to say, there were definitely some improvements that I needed to make. I think a big portion of it was, as you can see on this first wireframe right here, is I needed to add a skip feature. Initially, when I made it, there was only login or sign up available, and even though I did put, you can use your Apple account to make it or your Google account to sign in automatically. I still had one of the older individuals that I had test out the app, the prototype. They weren't a big fan of having to create or sign in accounts. One theme I hear a lot is, they're trying to steal your information or learn your information. So Skip was a feature that I added in there. I think it's important for people to sign in and log in because they can save their progress. For whatever reason their phone gets reset or formatted. It's really important for them to sign in, and that's something I would try to emphasize at some point. But skipping, and maybe you only to use the app one time, right? Just being able to skip is a pretty valuable function in that time. And some people might get turned off if they have to create and sign into an account and do all this. And definitely had to empathize with that, and so that was the first improvement I made. The next improvement I made was for the add card plus new deck confirmation. One thing that I did once you created a new deck was it just took you back to the home screen. So it almost seemed like you lost your progress. So I wanted to emphasize that the deck was created, and I made it after you created a new deck. I emphasized that, hey, it goes back to the new deck that you just created. So that'd be the title of the new deck right there in the middle. And then you could jump right into learning, or you could go back home if you wanted to once you were done with that. The next thing that's kind of still a work in progress is the home screen. I don't think it was very clear that was the home screen. Maybe with some UI, it would be more clear, but in the initial prototype testing, some people were a little bit confused by that. So that was something I wanted to emphasize a little bit more. So I added a home on the bottom that just kind of emphasized that you were at the home screen. I think kind of looking at it again, I would want to move the home, or maybe the label of what screen you're on at the top. So home, maybe a cutoff right there, and then the labels it as home, and then you're right by the battery and the, the status, the common status things that go on the top of the home, the screen on your phone. So what's next for the app improvements? One thing that I had in mind when I did some user testing was image suggestions. So similar to how the app on your phone, or the text messaging app works on your phone, where if you type in a GIF, or if you go to the GIF selection and then type in some kind of term, it'll come up with GIF suggestions. Basically, at that point, I think I would want to add that. I had an idea to add that to the flashcards app, where you can basically make a term, and it would kind of come up with a few suggestions of images that might be applicable to that term, and help you better suggest that, because I don't think that's a feature on any flashcard apps, or none that I've seen at least. And I think that'd be very valuable to help you ingrain whatever that term is. But it would just come up with a few suggestions, just to keep it really simple. Maybe 3 suggestions. Do you want to add this in, basically? The next thing I would want to add is some UI design. So make it start to spice it up a little bit, add some features, some color and stuff like that. That'd be the next thing I would want to add in there, because it's very plain right now. Obviously, it's a prototype. And then beyond that, I'd want to clean up the prototype and just make it a lot cleaner. I don't have the neatest handwriting, so it can be a little bit challenging to kind of get through it and whatnot. So definitely want to do that as well too. And then beyond that, with the new improvements, I haven't done any additional usability testing, so we'd want to go back around and see how it's working now at this point. Takeaways from going through this process of creating this prototype, I'd say next time design for the Marvel app. I waited to order a UI flashbook when I first started, and it got me back a few days. And then I also had the realization that I don't have the neatest handwriting, so maybe using the Marvel app itself had some pretty cool design features and that I didn't know existed until I looked at a few other people's like samples. So I think I would use that the next time. Another thing is to take constructive criticism. So obviously, when I did usability testing, some things came up that I could have were definitely areas of opportunity for me that I definitely could have improved on. And just learning how to take that. I think that's a big portion of when it comes to UX design is you're gonna have people prototype test your app, and that's what they're there for, to get an extra pair of eyes on it and help you improve it. So that's definitely something you need to be able to take pretty regularly. And then the last thing is don't overthink. I think I took a little too long to kind of get into the wireframes and design the app, but I think just jumping right into it and start prototyping is important, and just to sketch these things out and kind of start to do it is really important, and not to worry about not worry too much about making it neat and great all the time is another thing that I kind of picked up as well. But thank you all for attending my presentation, and please let me know if you have any feedback.